There comes a moment in life when you look at yourself and whisper, "I know I can do more. So why can't I move?" You call it laziness, but the Buddha would call it forgetfulness. Not forgetfulness of memory, but of who you truly are. Every soul was born with a natural energy, the fire of purpose. But over time, that fire dims beneath distractions, self-doubt, and endless noise. You start scrolling instead of living, thinking instead of being, and slowly you mistake exhaustion for failure. The Buddha once said, "Your work is to discover your world, and then with all your heart, give yourself to it." This is not about being busy, it's about being awake. Because when you awaken, action flows naturally. When your heart is alive, discipline is no longer a burden, it's joy. In this video, you'll rediscover that spark within you, a quiet strength that never left, only slept. By the end, you'll see you were never lazy. You were simply waiting to remember your light. 1. The truth about laziness, a deeper understanding. No one is truly lazy. What we often call laziness is simply a heart that has lost its direction, a mind that has forgotten its light. When energy no longer flows, it isn't because something is wrong with you. It's because you've become disconnected from your inner purpose, your truth, and the quiet fire that once guided your actions. The Buddha taught, "When a man understands the cause of his suffering, he will cease to suffer." Laziness is not the enemy. It is a message, a whisper from your deeper self saying, something inside needs care, not criticism. We live in a world that constantly drains our energy. Social media, endless noise, comparison, pressure, they scatter the mind and exhaust the heart. You scroll not because you don't care, but because you are seeking relief from the inner restlessness you don't yet understand. What looks like doing nothing is often the soul's quiet cry for stillness, for meaning, for peace. The lazy mind and the awake mind are not two different people. They are two states of the same consciousness. The lazy mind looks for reasons. The awake mind looks for ways. The lazy mind asks, "Why bother?" The awake mind whispers, "Why not now?" And that shift from reasoning to remembering is the moment awareness begins. You don't overcome laziness by fighting it. You overcome it by listening to it. Ask gently, what am I running from? What part of me is tired? Because once you understand the cause, the resistance softens naturally. The Buddha once said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." If our thoughts are heavy with guilt and shame, the world feels heavy too. But when our thoughts become gentle, compassionate, and mindful, energy returns like sunlight breaking through clouds. So take a deep breath. Forgive yourself for all the times you couldn't move. You were not weak. You were simply waiting to reconnect with your meaning, your dharma. And when you find that connection again, even the smallest step becomes sacred. You don't force motivation, you become it. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll uncover the secret of the golden hour, the first hour after you wake up, where your mind and soul are most open to transformation. It's the moment where you can begin again with peace, purpose, and awareness. 2. The first hour. After you wake up. The golden hour. Every morning is a quiet rebirth. When you open your eyes, you are not the same person who went to sleep. Your mind is fresh, open, and still soft like untouched water at dawn. In that fragile hour, the world has not yet entered you. There is silence between your thoughts. That silence is sacred. Neuroscience calls it the alpha-theta state, the space between dreaming and waking, where your mind is highly creative and receptive. But long before science gave it a name, the Buddha had already spoken of it. What we think, we become. These first thoughts, feelings, and actions of your day are like seeds. Whatever you plant then will grow throughout the day. Yet what do most of us do? We reach for the phone. Within seconds, we flood the mind with noise, comparison, fear, and reaction. We hand our peace to the outside world before we even remember who we are. That's why, by mid-morning, we already feel lost or drained, not because life is cruel, but because we began the day unconsciously. Imagine instead starting your morning as a small ceremony of awareness. Sit for a minute in silence. Feel your breath, not to control it, but to witness it. Whisper gratitude for one simple thing: the air, your body, the light, the chance to begin again. Then set a gentle intention. Today, I will move with mindfulness. The Buddha taught, each morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. When you remember this truth, you stop rushing to fill your mind and start learning to listen to it. That listening gives birth to clarity, and clarity naturally creates energy. The first hour after you wake is not just time, it is a doorway. A space where you can choose your direction before the world chooses it for you. Protect it tenderly. Fill it with stillness, gratitude, and purpose. Because when the mind begins in peace, the whole day becomes meditation. 3. Understanding your brain. Understanding your mind. To master your life, you must first understand the instrument that creates it, your mind. The brain is not your enemy. It is your most loyal student. It learns whatever you repeat. If you constantly feed it distraction and fear, it will build a world of noise. But if you feed it stillness and purpose, it will create peace. Science tells us the brain has 4 main wave states: beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Beta is the state of alertness where we think, plan, and react. Alpha and theta are slower, deeper the realms of creativity, intuition, and inner calm. Delta is the deep rest of sleep and renewal. When you wake up or meditate, your brain naturally moves through alpha and theta. These are not just scientific terms, they are windows into what the Buddha called right awareness. When the mind slows down, it begins to see clearly. It stops reacting and starts observing. The Buddha said, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Your brain is the physical reflection of that truth. Every thought creates a pathway. Every moment of mindfulness strengthens that pathway toward peace. So when you say, I'm lazy, what you really mean is, my brain is stuck in repetition. You've trained it to avoid discomfort, to seek pleasure instantly. But just as it learned that, it can unlearn it too. Every time you bring awareness to your breath, your thoughts, your actions, you rewire your mind toward clarity. The goal is not to control the brain, but to understand and guide it with compassion. Think of your mind as a wild horse. It doesn't need to be punished, only tamed with patience and presence. When you know how your mind moves, you are no longer its prisoner. You become its teacher. And that is when true freedom begins, not by escaping the mind, but by awakening within it. 4. The action. Mindset. There's no have, only do. Most people wait to feel ready before they begin. They wait for motivation, for the perfect mood, for energy to arrive. But that moment rarely comes because motivation doesn't create action. Action creates motivation. The Buddha taught, an idea that is developed and put into action is more important than an idea that exists only as an idea. True transformation begins not with emotion, but with a single step, a small conscious movement that breaks the illusion of, I can't. Action is not about forcing yourself, it's about moving with awareness. Even the smallest act done mindfully awakens energy. When you wash a cup with full presence, that is meditation. When you take one small step toward your goal, that is awakening in motion. You don't need to wait until you feel inspired to start. Inspiration is born from engagement, not from waiting. Every time you act, your energy grows and the next action becomes easier. When your mind says, I'll do it later, smile gently and reply, no, I'll begin now. Because in that moment you shift from dreaming to creating, from sleeping to awakening. The lazy mind looks for excuses. The awake mind looks for the next right step. And with each mindful step, life begins to move again naturally, peacefully, powerfully. Remember, you don't have energy to act, you create energy by acting. And once you start, you realize something beautiful. You were never lazy. You were only waiting to come alive. 5. Choose energy. Choose awareness. Every day you are given a simple but powerful choice to live unconsciously or to live awake. Laziness isn't your enemy. Forgetfulness is. Forgetfulness of your light, your purpose, your capacity to create meaning. The Buddha said, each morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most. When you understand this, you stop waiting for motivation to appear from outside. You realize that energy is not something you find, it's something you create through awareness. A mindful breath, a clear thought, a small step. These are sacred beginnings. Forgive yourself for the days you couldn't move. Forgive yourself for mistaking exhaustion for failure. You were never broken, only disconnected from your own center. And the moment you return to awareness, the heaviness starts to lift. The Buddha taught, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. In the same way, there is no path to energy awareness. Itself is energy. When you walk with mindfulness, even ordinary actions become alive. Drinking water, cleaning your space, starting your work. So today, don't chase after motivation. Instead, choose presence. Choose to breathe before you begin. Choose to act, even gently, with awareness. Because when you live like that fully here, fully awake, you'll discover that the word lazy no longer describes you. You are energy, you are awareness, and every mindful moment you live is a quiet step toward freedom. If this message touched your heart, take a moment to breathe. And remember, awareness begins with one small choice. If you felt a spark of peace or inspiration today, please subscribe to The Guiding Light, and let's keep walking this path of wisdom together. Your likes, shares, and comments help this light reach others who may be lost in the same darkness you once knew. Tell us below what part of this message spoke to you most deeply. May you walk with mindfulness, act with compassion, and remember, the light you seek has always been within you.